Good morning. Welcome back to our Sunday service. We start off this morning with Beethoven's 23rd Piano Sonata, second movement, titled The Passion.
Good morning and welcome as we gather again this morning, seeking to be in community, even though scattered, seeking to be in an opportunity to share with each other our hopes, our dreams. May we begin our time together with these words by Reverend Kenneth Patton. Let us worship with our eyes and ears and fingertips. Let us love the world through heart and mind and body. We feed our eyes upon the mystery and revelation in the faces of our brothers and sisters. We seek to know the wistfulness of the very young and the very old, the wistfulness of people in all times of their lives. And as we are gathered, may we recognize that last Thursday was the beginning of Ramadan for our Muslim sisters and brothers, a time when being together is a very important part of their celebration. That we be with them as they struggle with how to be faithful to their religion as well as faithful to working to defeat coronavirus. It is our custom as we gather to kindle a flame in our midst, a flame long the symbol of the presence of that which is whole and holy, a flame the symbol of knowledge and of wisdom. For we come together this morning seeking that which makes our lives and our world a more whole and holy place. We come together this morning seeking wisdom and knowledge as we continue to live our lives in troubled times, in times that are challenged in so many ways. And now I invite those of you who know it to say with me the words of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. It is our custom as we gather to pause for a moment, sharing our milestones, our joys, and our sorrows by lighting a candle. Unfortunately, since we are not all gathered in one place, we invite you to send your joys and sorrows by internet or the chat session And at the end of the service, we will read the joys and sorrows.
This will be Chopin's Nocturne, Opus 55, number 1.
This morning, partly because it is Ramadan, and partly because this particular poem also fits with what I'll be talking about today, I would like to read to you a short poem by the Islamic poet Rumi entitled, "The Wound is the Place Where the Light Enters You." I said, "What about my eyes?" God said, "Keep them on the road." I said, "What about my passion?" God said, "Keep it burning." I said, "What about my heart?" God said, "Tell me what you hold inside it." I said, "Pain and sorrow." He said, "Stay with it. The wound is the place where the light enters you." Let's pause for a moment in silence. A moment where we allow ourselves to be one with that is of the universe that surrounds us. Let us pause for a moment, letting that light enter us, which sometimes with great pain allows us to change, to see things in a different way, to be the selves that we might be. Amen. The rhythm of work. Work and labor are important. If you go to a party or even meet someone here at church, probably the first thing you ask is, "What is your name?" Actually, you probably don't have to ask for the name. If I simply say, "Hi, I'm Ralph," the other person will almost certainly turn to me and say, "Oh, hi, Ralph, I'm Mary." And I've got the name. The second question we might ask is, where do you live? But certainly, if not the second, by the third question you come to, what do you do? Now, there are so many interesting answers to that question. I think of things like I scuba dive, or I fly fish, or perhaps I climb the highest mountain in each state, or I coach a children's baseball team. Could just go on and on. There are so many interesting things about each of us. And why not talk about those things? But so much of who we are is shaped by the job that we hold, by the work that we do. When we ask, what do you do? We will almost always hear something like, oh, I'm a school teacher, or an accountant, or an electrician, or I assemble circuit boards. Even if the job is, I clean out septic tanks. You will probably hear about the job that someone has. Now, if you want to make sure that the conversation doesn't go on too long, and if you want to be sure you won't hear any off-color jokes or anything else that's a bit spicy, simply say, I'm a minister. Oh, will be the response, and the conversation won't last long. Here in the United States, even if we are not religious, we hold on tightly to that old Protestant work ethic. Calvin's influence has certainly left its mark, even if we do affirm a much more liberal religion today. And if we look at where his ideas, the ideas of the work ethic come from, we find that it's the Bible. But even that doesn't support a work ethic. In the 30th chapter of the book of Isaiah, it says, Thus saith the Lord God, the Holy One of Israel, quoting, in repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. There are also those quotations about the day of rest in that First Testament. And in the Second Testament of the Bible, there are many places where Jesus leaves his busyness, finds a place to meditate, to ponder. It seems that those times are among the most valued in Jesus' ministry. Calvin and those early Protestant reformers felt that any work, and perhaps only work, was sacred. Leisure was dismissed as idleness. But is that really so? Now, I don't believe that we are commanded to be totally idle. There's some rhythm between work and idleness, which meets both the needs of the human desire to be productive and the human need for time for reflection, for meditation, for being in contact with that which transcends our understanding. Also, it's not just the Judeo-Christian tradition that praises time not spent not working. Aristotle is credited with having said, we work in order to have leisure. That is, it's not the work itself that's important, but the fact that work provides the opportunity for leisure. There is that balance, that rhythm that's important in our lives. It is said that a great Zen master said to his student, don't just do something, sit there. Don't just do something, sit there. We spend so much of our time busy, talking, working, going places to do things, that there's no time left to be in touch with and aware of ourselves. Much of our religion calls on us to look for a balance in life between work and leisure. And yet it seems to fly in the face of our work ethic, and we seldom really take it seriously. For some, many of us, the work that we do enriches our lives as well as our pockets. I think of my father. At his mother's insistence, my father left school before starting high school. It was time, she believed, for him to begin supporting the family financially. Each week, when he received his pay, like his father, he turned it over to his mother, and she gave him a small allowance. He did not follow his mother's advice to get a job as a loom fixer in one of the textile factories, as his father did. He began working in a bank, first in Patterson and then commuting to New York, and soon made far more money than his father. But still, each week it was turned over to his mother, and he received that small allowance. I'm sure that Bet wasn't very pleased when he met my mother. You see, she insisted that he tell his mother that he would provide room and board, but that he would keep his earnings. He loved his work and often brought work home with him to do over weekends. He sometimes spent evenings at work. He sometimes worked weekends. And when he turned 65, the mandatory retirement age, he was devastated. He held an important position in the bank as a vice president. And the bank and his fellow employees wanted to celebrate his time with them and organized a very nice retirement party in a very nice New York hotel. Dad was the last one to get there, really quite late. You see, when he had gone in the morning, he had been working on moving one department from one place to another, and he had to check to make sure that each of the telephones had the proper number and was installed where it ought to be. He started that job this morning and couldn't go to his retirement party until he had finished. When he retired from the bank, he really retired from life. He'd always enjoyed fishing, but after retiring, he refused to buy a fishing license or to fish. He'd enjoyed travel, but after he retired, he was not interested in traveling, and it took a great deal of coaxing. to get him to go on a trip with my mother. There were several times that she said to him, I know you don't want to go to, well, wherever, someplace, China or someplace around the world, but I'm going to go. And he would then decide that he would go with her. He enjoyed his work. It was the center of his life. And I hope that none of us get that attached to our work. But many of us do really enjoy the work that we do. If it's important work and we can do it well, we can feel a good deal of genuine pride. Also, the people we work with are often a totally different community of people from those we normally associate with. They're not relatives, they're not friends, but we spend a considerable amount of time with them, and they become important members of our family. My father was a very heavy smoker. And after some years, he realized that when he gripped the steering wheel of the car, his knuckles and fingers turned white and hurt. He was talking with his boss about it, and his boss said to him, Clarke, you know, you've got to stop smoking. That's what's causing this. Now, Dad had been asked to stop smoking many times. His doctor had recommended it. The family recommended it. But when his boss told him that he should stop smoking, he never smoked another cigarette. Those people that we work with are important in our lives. And I know that many of us love our work. I certainly do. And while I've done a number of things during my life and have enjoyed them all, my time as a minister has been special to me. I've struggled for much of my life with doing something which had a tangible outcome, something that I could hold in my hands and say, I did this, I made this. And also a job which allowed me to work in a way that is supportive and helpful to other people. Ministry lets me do that. The sermons are tangible results of my work, as are other things. And I spend a good deal of my time talking to and working with people. It's something that provides many rewards for me that are not just financial. I suspect that's true for many of you. And this time of social distancing, may reduce some of the rewards that you usually enjoy. Of course, at this time, there are a number of people who, well, their jobs are not particularly rewarding. They desperately need the income. And while unemployment insurance helps many, it does not help all. Many of them live in areas where there are not many cases of the COVID disease, where it seems silly not to be working. Well, it seems silly not to be going out to restaurants, having a drink at the bar. And they want to get back to work. Most of this, I think, is ignorance. They don't realize the possibilities. They don't realize that the more people interact with each other, the more likely it is that the virus will be spread. They don't realize that at this point we don't know whether that virus provides immunity, so that like measles and mumps, if you've had them once, you will not have them again. It may well be that in another 6 months, the people who have suffered with the virus now will be suffering with it again. Fortunately, most people in our country believe that it's more important to reduce the spread of COVID-19 than to reopen the economy. Most people think only of the benefits to the economy and to the country, but not all. There was a woman on television news several times. She was probably in her early to mid 30s. And she said, I know that it's more serious for people who are old or have other medical conditions, but they've just got to deal with it. I want to get back to work. What she really was saying, I think, what she meant to say was that they just need to die because her work was more important than their lives. We do have to deal with this terrible disease, and it does strike hardest at the elderly and those who have compromised immune systems and those with other medical issues. It's not that those people who are afflicted only. People over 100 years of age are surviving the disease, and children, and teenagers, and people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are dying. Since we don't really know what's going to happen with it, we had better take all the caution we can to provide effective vaccine and other medications that will treat the disease. But in the meantime, to wear a mask, to separate ourselves from people who might be contagious, or perhaps more important, if it turns out that we are contagious, to protect other people from us. That's important, and I hope we will all take it seriously. But for now, let's return kind of to where we began. We work a lot here in this country. Almost all countries in the world require that employers provide some amount of paid vacation. There are some countries where this minimum is as little as 5 days a year, with perhaps a few days of holiday, which may or may not be compensated. The United States does not require any vacation time, paid or unpaid. And we have relatively few holidays, only a few 3-day weekends. In Norway, after the first year, people get 25 vacation days paid, plus 10 holidays. That's 35 days a year, more than a month that they do not work. In Germany, it's 38 days. In the Netherlands and United Kingdom, it's 28 days. Even in China, it's 21 days. And in northern Russia, it is 56 days. The United States in 2017, the average vacation time was just over 17 14 days, and that included holidays. And many people don't take all of their vacation. They think it might look bad on their record if they didn't work on some of their vacation time. Oh, I'm getting rather bored at staying home at this point. It's been a long time since I was really able to engage with people and work, many things that I feel are important. But perhaps this is a time that we should consider what our lives would be like if we had and took a bit more vacation. If we spent some time resting, if we spent some time looking at what our lives could be. And so, in rest is your salvation, in quietness and trust is your strength. Or if you prefer, don't just do something, sit there. Do we have from Chris Vieira, a candle of thanks for the wonder of the emerging spring, which we see all around us. And from Peter, a candle of hope for Peter DeYoung as he continues his treatment to fight cancer. So far, so good. And also a candle of concern for how to celebrate Earth Day without the chance to publicly demonstrate. Perhaps it's an opportunity to focus on making changes at home. From Sonia Bouchard, a candle of joy and celebration for my mother's 70th birthday yesterday. From Hallie Carson, a candle of joy for old British mystery shows, keeping us entertained while we are stuck at home. I don't know whether any of you have noticed the magnolia trees recently. They don't look very good. There was a heavy frost the middle of this last week, which may very well have destroyed our peach crop for another year. A candle of hope for our members who are unable to be with us here today. I think of Audrey Gillum. I think of Rita Paddock. I think of Shirley Nero and Shirley Phipps, of Jackie Nelson, and others who may not be on the tips of our tongues, but are in our hearts. May we contact them with phone calls, notes, cards, letting them know that we still value them. And a candle that we may soon find cures to this terrible coronavirus, and that we look deeply at all of the sources of finding ways. Somewhere here. As we gathered, we kindled a flame in our midst. As we prepare to leave, we extinguish the flame in the chalice, but may it burn on in our hearts and in our minds. May it call us to seek that which makes us whole and holy. May it call us to be grateful to those people who risk their lives to make our lives better and safer. May it be a time to celebrate the beauty of the season, even at a time of great sadness and difficulty. Amen.
I'd like to end today with a great song that brought me a lot of comfort over the years. This will be Steely Dan's Deacon Blues. I'd like to read you the opening verse. This is the day of the expanding man. That shape is my shade, there where I used to stand. It seems like only yesterday I gazed to the glass at ramblers, wild gamblers. That's all in the past. You call me a fool. You say it's a crazy scheme. But this one's for real. I already bought the dream. So useless to ask me why. Throw a kiss and say goodbye. I'll make it this time. I'm ready to cross that fine line. I'll learn to work the saxophone. I'll play just what I feel. Drink scotch, whiskey all night long, and die behind the wheel. They have a name for winners in the world. I want a name when I lose. They called Alabama the Crimson Tide. That was Asia by Walter Becker and Donald Fagen from the 1977 album.
And before we leave, I thank you for joining us this morning, for being part of our virtual congregation. I do need to remind you that while we are not holding services in our building, our costs continue. If you are able and willing, I invite you to contribute either by sending a check to the church or using credit card. Check our website for the link to make donations by credit card. And thank you for listening, and thank you for being with us.